Call to order the regular governing board meeting of the Jefferson Elementary School District at 7:02, June 26, 2013, 7:02.
Turn that on now.
And can we have members present?
Hans Hansen,
Here.
Rebecca Douglas,
Here.
Marie Brizuela,
Here.
Joseph Otaidi, Shakil Ali.
Here. And guess we'll ask Ms. Hopkins to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, Mr.
Straightforward.
So far.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing on fiscal year 2013-2014 proposed budget. And
Yes, I'll
inviting any comments from the public,
speak to this.
and I don't see,
No.
Excuse me. Move so fast today.
yeah.
Okay, so the budget has been advertised as of June 14th in the San Mateo Times, and it has been made available both in the district office and online as an attachment to this agenda. And this is an opportunity for the public to speak about the 13-14 proposed budget before the board votes on it.
At this point, we have no speaker cards. Hearing is closed. Comments from any administrator?
Pass.
Also pass.
Comments from any board member?
Nothing new.
Nope. Or could I ask that we close our meeting this evening in memory of Al Swarsbach?
Yes, we have
You have that on there?
a short, so we'll read that later too. Great. This is for now.
I'll make one comment. Anybody out there who's got summer reading assignments, get started on them. There's been a run at the library on those books.
That's true. Thanks everyone for coming out. And do we have any comments from, persons wishing to address the board? At this point, we only have one speaker card, and that's from Melinda Dart.
Good evening, Melinda Dart, AFT 3267. Today I found out that yet another middle school teacher is leaving our district. We have about 10 openings, I believe, right now. A lot of those are middle school openings. And two of those openings are for science, which is, crucial. All those classes are crucial, but it just makes the point that I've been making for so long, which is that we really need to start addressing the issue of the salaries staying stagnant, because we are seeing the effects now. The new young teachers, and the young teachers are the teachers in the middle schools. They're not all young. I can vouch for that. But there are the best, the brightest, the most recently trained are in our middle schools, and we need to keep them. We just can't afford the brain drain, and we need to attract them as well for the future. So I know that you all know this, and I know that everybody here knows this, but I just have to reiterate that for everyone and for the community out there, that salaries are a part of what we have to do to protect the future of our school district, to make the salary increase meaningful and not just a flash in the pan, but to start budgeting every year for those increases, and also to look at the salary schedule and do something about the far end of it, which is where we lag. You know, we're more or less average, and those of us in that end of it will clap for that too. We're more or less average when it comes to new teachers. So they come to us, they get trained, they get all kinds of workshops and training, and then they leave us because they can make 10,000 more down the peninsula. So, and middle school teachers can easily switch over to high school. So we want to keep them here. We want our middle schools to be the best, and we want to have vibrant and wonderful classes of science and math and language arts in those schools. And so I know you know this, but let's not forget it as we go forward into August, and let's do something about this and make our district a place where the best and the brightest want to come and stay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Dart, for those comments, and I just want to assure you that whenever a teacher or classified person leaves, we do ask the superintendent to give us, you know, the reasons behind the leaving. Any correspondence?
No correspondence. I do have just some comments in the absence of Ms. McCulick, who is at a conference or at a meeting down in Southern California today. But I do need to remind all of our incoming seventh grade students that they do need to get their Tdap immunization in before they can start school. I know many of them did it during their sixth grade year, which is great, but we are still lagging, and we have a couple of outstanding ones, and we'll be contacting homes and families over the summer to make sure that they can turn it in at the beginning of August.
You have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We do need a voice vote.
Resolution.
Voice.
We have a voice vote
One,
there.
2, all right, yeah. Roll call.
Mr. Hanson,
Aye.
Dr. Douglas,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Mr. Ali.
Aye. Thanks. Acceptance of donations.
Yeah, we have a couple of donations that came in during this last 2 weeks, and they're listed for your acknowledgement if you choose.
Okay, it looks like they came in for MP Brown, $200 from Mr. Gilberto Santos and Ms. Valerie Hiriart for a field trip, and Mr. and Mrs. Serpis, $100 also for the field trip. In fact, it looks like these were all collections for the field trip from Ms. Flora Hernandez, Ms. Hilton Rivera, and Mr. and Mrs. Santana. So we want to thank them for supporting the field trips there at MP Brown, and I will make a motion to accept the donations with thanks.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you very much.
Yes. I will note that is about the only way that field trips happen at many of our schools, is by PTAs and parents providing the money to do it.
Correct.
All right, we have a board resolution number 13-06-26 for budgetary increases and transfers at year end.
And I will speak to this. This is a routine item. Normally, it's on the consent agenda. The transfers are a regular part of business that we do throughout the year. And at the first interim and the second interim, your approval of those two reports, you approve the transfers as a part of the reports. And so at the end of the year, because we don't have an interim report left and the unaudited actuals speak only to the actuals, we do this resolution so that we can make transfers to cover expenditures that would otherwise not be covered, and so that we can pay them. So this resolution would allow the business office to make those transfers as necessary.
All right. Just a quick question. Is our necessity to do this based on the deferrals from the state? Or what
Actually,
is-
no, because this is a budget thing. What it basically is that we have major object codes, 1,000s, 2,000s, 3,000s. 1s and 2,000s are salaries, certificated, classified. 3,000s are benefits. So, like for instance, 4 and 5,000s, we have 4,000s would be supplies, 5,000s would be services, and maybe we have a site that has a supply budget in the 4,000s, and they decide they want to spend it on their copy machine. So they have to make a budget transfer. They have to move the money from the 4,000s to the 5,000s. That requires the board to approve. And those are the types of things that we do here. Or update the budget, like for the bond receiving of the funds.
Okay, little balancing acts. Then I would make a motion to approve Board Resolution 13-06-26 for budgetary increases and transfers at year end.
Second motion?
All right, roll call.
Mr. Hanson,
Aye.
Dr. Douglas.
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela.
Aye.
Mr. Ali.
Aye. And board resolution number 13-06-26B for temporary interfund transfer, which is a loan at year end from Fund 01 to Fund 40.
I will speak to that. This temporary transfer is a result of the building of the central kitchen because of the sale of Columbus property. And as you know, the sale of the Columbus property, we weren't sure exactly when it was going to close, and we have not received the bulk of the funds in. And so some of those funds need to be used in order to cover the cost of relocating the kitchen. And so this is just to cover those funds until we receive them, and then we will be paying back the general fund.
All right.
I make a motion to approve Board Resolution 13-06-26B for temporary interfund transfer at year end from Fund 01 to Fund 40.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Hanson.
Aye.
Dr. Douglas.
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela.
Aye.
Mr. Ali.
Aye. Board resolution number 13-06-26A. B first, huh? New ground-mounted photovoltaic panel project.
I would be happy to speak to this.
I can speak to this if you want.
Doesn't matter to me.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Ben Franklin and at FDR, we will be needing ground mounts, and in order to be able to do that, to not go through DSA, which we don't have to go through DSA. Matter of fact, we can't really go through DSA, but we do have to dedicate the space to non-school purposes and disallow pupils and teachers and other staff that have no direct purpose for doing something with the solar there, only for solar purposes. So this space has to be dedicated to it.
Okay.
And this resolution does that.
I move that we approve Resolution 13-06-26A, the new ground-mounted photoelectric panel.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Hanson.
Aye.
Dr. Douglas.
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela.
Aye.
Mr. Ali.
Aye. Renewal of the agreement with Aramark for the consulting management services of the food service operation for 2013-2014.
Again, this is a business item, so I will speak to that, and I would like to also invite up Fred Ellis and Jeff Hale. This is the fourth year. We will be going into the fourth year of a 5-year contract with the RFP that we went out with. Aramark has done an excellent job to date. Prior to them coming on, we had deficit spending in the food service program, and we are currently not doing that. The 2013-14 budget does have a CPI increase of 2.4%. That is what is written into the contract, the San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland area CPI. Additionally, the budget is set to make approximately $48,000 next year, but I do want to bring to your attention that this does not, again, this budget, just like all of our other budgets, do not include any kind of increases as a result of negotiations, which have not been completed at this point. So that budget does not have it, and nor does it have it for the health care. The health care is back to the $700 per person per month cap. We continue to have the $100,000 guarantee, and upon closing our books, we will reconcile it and see if there's any funds that are due to the district or not, depending on whose responsibility particular expenditures were of the current year. But I would like to offer Mr. Ellis and Mr. Hale the opportunity to speak to the contract.
I would just like to thank everybody for finally, in the summertime, I've been able to get my feet under the ground and start looking forward to next year. Would specifically like to thank my predecessor, Carrie Perkins, for her outstanding job of kind of getting me up to speed and showing me the ins and outs in a relatively short period of time. And I really look forward to focusing on the program next school year.
All right.
And as always, I just want to publicly thank the school district and the board for allowing us this partnership, and I've really enjoyed the time we've been here, and I look forward to more years and working now with Jeff as I had with Carrie in the past, and I still get to talk to her, so I'm I'm happy, and I still have lots of questions that I ask her still to make sure that we're continue to stay ahead of the game in the district and the food service program.
All right, thanks. Any questions?
I know this is under business, but there was some concern about the nutrition value of some of the food being given to our children, and we want to make sure that that's being addressed. I think you perhaps heard some of the conversation that was brought up. So I'd like to see that would meet the needs of the students and what the parents are expecting for their children. So how are we doing on that?
Sponsor, why don't you take the first one, since you...
Sure, yeah.
Specifically, it was the
So-
sugar content. of
Yeah.
breakfast
So in the info bulletin about a week ago, I did express that to begin with. All of the meals are within the federal guidelines. That's number one. Additionally, the fruits are not packed in heavy syrup. They are packed in either light syrup or natural juices. Additionally, speaking with Mr. Hale, this current year, the 12-13 year, was a huge, as you know, that's when the Healthy Children's Act, Healthy and Hungry Children's, or whatever it's called, came into being. This was the first year. And the huge focus was on lunches because it had really changed a lot. Next year, there's going to be a really big focus on the breakfasts. And Jeff is going to spend a lot of time this summer looking at the menus. We also discussed some of the more sugary breakfast cereals, and we have decided that we will finish whatever we've got, which our inventory is very little right now, and then go to less sugary ones, even though these do actually comply. We will go to the less sugary ones and give it a really good opportunity to be successful, to get the kids the time to move over and eat these other cereals and hopefully not lose participation. If we lose too much participation, we might have to look at it. Right now, we have approximately 15% participation, so it's very low, and we would like to increase that. If you have any other questions that you would like to direct to them, if I can't answer it, please entertain that.
Well, the biggest concern was that it not be so sugary, and there are other options to have, and so we need to work on that. I hope that we don't have to just use up food because it's there, because it's still our children. So I would hope that we would do better than we did, because we're hearing it, and it's not okay. And if you just allow what a child thinks he might want to eat, well, then they'll be eating sugar every day. So we need to set the guidelines for what we serve,
All right.
because we're supposed to be about healthy, right? So I'll be looking. I'll see you for breakfast. No.
So if there's no more questions, I'd like to make the motion that we renew the agreement with Aramark for the consulting and management services of the food service operation for 2013-2014.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
I would like to thank Jeff for his efforts in learning this position mid-year and taking it on. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, you're here. Jefferson
Thank you, guys.
Elementary.
So, Mr. Ali, the presenter for item number 8 is not here, and I think we've been moving quicker through our agenda than We told him. No. So I would ask that we jump to number 9,
right.
and then if he is here, we'll take number 8, and then if he's not here, we'll just take him when it's
He comes.
appropriate.
All right, no problem.
And I will be periodically checking to make sure he's not on the 90th Street side of the part of the door.
All right. All right. So it gives me pleasure to introduce this one, adoption of fiscal year 2013-2014 proposed budget for active district funds.
It would be my pleasure to speak to this item. Since I did the presentation at the last meeting, there have been minor changes, very small, $10,000 in total for the current year, the budget year. And in review, I'd like to just go over that the budget was built on the traditional revenue limit basis, but of course, we will be changing it to LCFF once it is approved, and it actually has not been approved yet, but we do expect it to happen. And also that we reduce the deficit factor from 77.7 to 81.0%. So that's actually a reduction, even though it sounds like it's higher. As well as we have, because the budget has not been approved yet, and because we do not know how much is going to be restricted and unrestricted, what we did is we took the amount from the deficit factor and we just put it in a reserve called State Adoption Reserve, just so that we can see what the state adopts. Again, salaries and benefits are only in the budget via step and column increases. There are no increases because, other than that, because negotiations have not been complete. So again, once the budget is adopted by the state and all the regs come out and we have something to revise our budget to, we will do that, and then we will be reporting back to you.
All right. Before we ask any questions, does anyone want to speak to this? No?
They would fill out a speaker card if they
Well, I'm just giving them the chance.
Should I fill one out?
You can do it after.
It's not the
Is it
The
for your
public hearing?
purposes?
Can you
Yes.
recycle the one there?
Yes. All right, that's fine.
Just put all the items.
I'll
So
put it on here.
Melinda Dart, AFT 3267. I just want to reiterate that we have high hopes for this budget to change a little bit in the area of salary in August, and I've already communicated the urgency I feel to see our salaries start to show an increase so that we can attract and keep good teachers in our district. And I just want to make that comment one more time since we're on this item. Thanks.
All right. This is the time we can ask questions or respond to that, but Mr. Hanston,
Well, respond to that?
well,
Any questions?
ask questions.
Topic?
to Ms.
Public comments.
Oh,
You can ask me questions if you'd like.
That's what I meant, Ms. Kessler.
what is left for the state to do?
Well, the governor actually has to approve the Assembly's Budget Act. Yeah, the whole, all the trailer bills, everything, he's got to approve it, and apparently the holdup right now happens to be with the Public Records Act. So it actually tomorrow, one of the bills has to be signed by him tomorrow, that's his 10-day period, and another one by the 30th. So we hope to get it within a few days. And then everything has to be interpreted. And that interpretation will then come to us and we'll know what to do with it. But first it needs to be interpreted.
Who
They
interprets
sign
it?
it, and then the lawyers get rich.
One of the things I think that I've learned about budget adoption and at the state level is that the legislature passes a spending plan, spend X amount of dollars, and that's considered a budget. We have this much coming in, and we're going to spend this much, and then the trailer bills come in the week to two after that. So all of the trailer bills that specifies how that money is to be spent and what some regulations around that have yet even to be released from the legislature.
That is
They're
correct.
holding them for what Ms. Kessler referred to as the There's something going on, well, not something going on, but they're redoing the Public Records Act and the responsibility of the state and public agencies. And so that's being held, and I don't know what they called it. I read it today, and it sounded odd. But it's being held like purgatory, I guess it could be. And then, you know, so in limbo, but maybe limbo's better.
Word for it.
Limbo's more positive. So it's being held in limbo, and then they release them all at once to the governor, and then he has 10 days to sign all of those trailer bills. So the spending plan is out, and as Ms. Kessler said, should be signed within the next day or so. But then the trailer bills have yet to be released, so they'll be released in the next couple of days. And it's those trailer bills that provide all of the regulations that require the interpretation about what can be spent where and how.
Since we're talking about this Public Records Act, would that affect local education agencies as well?
Everybody, I think, isn't it?
It'll affect all public agencies, yes.
So we'd have to foot the bill to make sure that,
Yeah, I haven't really looked at the requirements, but it sounds like the state is not going to reimburse public agencies for any expenses incurred due to the Public Records Act compliance, as they have in the past. I mean, they reimburse us 5 or 6 years later, but yet nonetheless, we were reimbursed. And now it seems like that's going to be certainly lessened, if not eliminated. I haven't read it.
And is I correct from reading the newspaper that the state is, as much as they've been broke, trying to balance their budget, are now giving raises?
That I don't know. I think.
Well,
I
it was
do
in the paper, so.
Yeah, I do. I can't
So
speak
it's,
to
I mean,
that.
it's got to be a fact, or they wouldn't,
Yeah, I
but
can't
anyway,
speak
it's,
to that.
and I guess I just want to say, if they're taking the initiative to go ahead and do this, then we certainly need to look at the same thing and decide when are we going to step up and do what we have to do as well. And look at our reserves.
any other questions?
Under the best of circumstances, when will we know what we're getting for the next year?
Under the best of circumstances?
best.
Probably mid-July. I think those are actually maybe even the 10th of July, maybe. I am going to a conference on the 10th, and I hope to have some information, and I'm going to another conference on the 16th for more information.
And in the worst-case scenario, after next school year ends?
I think that there will be corrections. So I think that probably in the next couple of months, we'll probably have most of the clarity, but there'll probably be corrections along the way and changes where they find that they've made errors or things aren't quite the way they thought they'd be. The LCFF is such a huge departure from revenue limit that there are going to be kinks that need to be ironed out. But in the end, after a couple of years, I think that we'll probably all feel more comfortable with it.
Couple of years? No.
Yes, if we're lucky, yeah, because it's going to be an 8-year implementation. But then again, you know, we've only been getting 78 cents on the dollar, and now we're, you know, going to be getting more. So this, I do believe that in a few years we'll have a much better understanding of it and know where we're going.
Just to clarify, the governor has until, what is it, August 15th? Is there, there was a date that we discussed last time,
He has 10 days after he receives the bills to sign them.
right?
So
But what is, there's like some August 15th date for,
I don't know.
all right. So anyhow, we'll know within the next month or so.
That's my daughter's birthday. That's probably what you were thinking.
All right. All right. There's no other deliberation. Do we have a motion?
Well, okay, so I understand Mr. Hansen's concern, and let's really get more down to finding out. As soon as we know more exactly what we're getting, we need to get rolling on this, because I noticed that we're only going to have one meeting in July. So we really need to make sure we know as soon as we can, so we can really act on some of the items that we have to vote on.
Yes.
So I just don't want to say, we're going to wait until August, we're going to wait until September. We need to be ready, that as soon as we get the word, then we get to do it.
Yes, I
I
think
believe that's why you have.
I
the
can
other
assure you the
fund.
business department is
Yeah.
eager to get a real budget in place, and then to share it with you and to go over any information that you would like to review.
We need to vote on it, is what I'm saying. So we want to make sure that we're in a position
will.
to do that.
You will. We do have a couple of budget study sessions planned to give information and allow you to understand some of the major shifts in how schools are funded.
Motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the fiscal year 2013-14 proposed budget for active district funds.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
If I might just make one more comment, I think both Ms. Kessler and I, and certainly I know Ms. Dart we've been in regular contact with some of our elected representatives on some of these questions, specifically the percentage of the funds that are unrestricted and available for general operations, and those funds that are restricted and need to follow students for supplemental and extra services. Both, I think, are very important, but we don't know yet the balance of that, and we don't know how it can be influenced. And so we are working on different ways of trying to influence it so that more can be unrestricted and available for general operation costs. Worst case scenario, it looks like we might have less unrestricted. In a better case scenario, we could have more. So
We still don't know.
we still don't know, and we're asking questions and calling people and emailing and trying to sort of move the conversation in that direction wherever it needs to happen.
Thank you.
All right. Are we ready for item 8?
Yes, we are.
Oh, yeah.
Jefferson Elementary School District 2012-2013 Enrollment and Capacity Study.
So this is my last opportunity to talk this evening.
Sorry.
We do have Mr. Ken Reynolds from Schoolworks, who's done an enrollment and capacity study for us, and he will be presenting that to us tonight.
Great.
And here he is with his assistant, Jody.
I think I have. Yeah, I have.
Thank you.
Well, we also have this digitally.
It was electronic. There should be no changes, but sometimes it's easier to page through
Well,
a
that's
report.
Yes,
Since I've already
much
printed them,
easier.
I guess I should. Oh, right. It's not smoothed.
Not me. Administration. Be good for me.
That's Joseph's.
All right, thanks for the opportunity to present this evening. We were hired to originally conduct a study on the possibility of some consolidation or school closure options. Whenever we do an analysis, we like to go through and start with a review of the district's information. And so basically what we did is we gathered student records that identified where they live and what school they go to and what grade level they are. So we put that into a computerized map, similar to like a Google map. And in a GIS system, Geographic Information System, we load that data in for 4 years of history so that we can do analysis and look at how the demographics are changing. Is there enrollment shifting from one area to another? Do we have some areas growing, some areas declining? By having several years of data, we're able to look at things over time to do our analysis. Other information that we collected was drawn in the school boundaries. So we know where students reside, what school they're assigned to, but not only that, since we know where they live and we know what school they're actually enrolled in, we are able to look at the attendance patterns. And so that's another critical factor we take a look at, is because you don't always go to the school, your neighborhood school. Sometimes there's special programs, sometimes there's other issues that, and just choices, the choices we have in our communities today, that understanding those patterns that exist, for example, all the transfers into Tobias. We like to see where they live and where they go to school. So we have maps in our report that basically go through and look at each individual school, so we know what their historic enrollment has been. We project it out by looking at the data we've collected. Other information that goes into our projections, we look at birth data. How many children are born? That information comes from the Department of Health. And we know when a child is born, on the birth certificate, they record the mother's address. And so this information is compiled by zip codes. Now, obviously, zip codes don't always match school district boundaries. So we don't have a great correlation all the time, but the information in here, we want to take a look at page on page 4, the blue line there,
What page are you on? You said 4?
page 4. The blue line there is the information from the zip codes on the number of births, whereas the bars, the blue bars there showed 5 years later how many of those children that were born ended up in your schools. Now, in the gray area over to the right of the chart, we're showing what we would anticipate your future kindergarten enrollments would be by following the trend line of the number of births. And so what was significant here was we were seeing that over the last 4 years, there have been slightly fewer births than there have been historically. So the number of births has been slightly declining in the 2 zip codes we analyzed, which were 94014 and 94015. So we've seen a slight decline, which, it's not the only factor, but if that trend holds true, we could see a slight decline in the net kindergarten enrollment. Now, obviously, that might be offset by some increases in our transitional kindergarten program. Another factor that we did have to take a look at is the transitional kindergarten program. And the other thing I factored into our projections, when we do our demographic analysis, since we know where the students live, we went through and analyzed how many students live outside the district that would be on basically transfers. They attend here, but they live outside your boundaries. And that happens in every district. There's some coming in and some leaving for various reasons, obviously. And so that number we look at as a separate factor and assume that stays constant. So if some policy changes or some patterns changes in the neighboring districts where the number of transfers in and out changes, then that basically overrides what our projections are. And then if we go to page 6, I think has our projections.
Okay.
Is that-
Do we ask questions as you go, or do we have to wait till the end?
I'm flexible.
Okay. On page 6 now, when you have the school districts and the number of students, are we saying those are the students that come to our district, that live in these districts?
Yes.
Okay. So how about the ones that live in our zip code but don't come to our school?
I did not analyze that
Whoa.
by student. What we did is we collect the data on the students that are enrolled in your district.
Just on the enrollment?
Right. So if there's a child that's, enrolled in another district, one of your neighboring districts, they're not in your database. And so I don't have the exact details. I did do an analysis of the census data. In the census data from 2010, we know how many school-aged children live within your school district boundary. And we also know from 2010 who actually was enrolled in your district. So I did share those statistics.
In that paragraph down there.
Yes, I think it's right underneath there. And so it talks about the percentage of the students that actually exist that are enrolled in your school. And it was, I think, a relatively low number. So I don't know if there's a lot of private school options or charter school options that are drawing down. But statewide, we only average about 9 or 10% for the state as a whole of our enrollment in private schools. So again, all those factors would have to come into account. And again, I didn't do a detailed analysis to find out how many of your children are actually leaving the district. It's sometimes hard to get exact data on that. If a child lives here but wants to go to school somewhere else, they're supposed to apply for a transfer and get your approval to leave. But that's not required when they're in private school, and it's not required when they're in a charter school. So the number of actual legal records that we have of that data usually is not a significant percent of the population. And so the only data we would have to analyze is information on approvals that you've granted for children that are leaving.
Because we do have at least 3 parochial schools
Right.
in our district, so there's got to be some numbers there.
We
And
don't
so-
have that information. We can't get that information.
No, I understand, but if you have the information that they're living in our area, that must show up someplace, right?
Yeah, that was in the census data, and that's why I provided that as an information
Yeah.
point. I said it, but I don't, we don't have the actual address of every
Right.
student, right? If we wanted to look at a map, because sometimes it's great to be able to visualize that and look on our maps to see if we're seeing some trends or a pattern, right? And so if we noticed, and one of the things that we typically notice, even with some of the charter school programs I've worked with, is that you have a higher rate of attendance in your neighborhood. That's obviously why we try to design neighborhood schools. That's typically 60% of your enrollment is, at least 60% is typically right within your neighborhood.
So how did you, what did you think the reason for having 84, which seems like a larger number of any other numbers of students? I'm assuming, according to this, that they live in our zip code area, and they live in South San Francisco School District, but they're in our, you got them,
attending our schools.
they're attending our schools?
There's
Right.
So
111
there's-
from San Francisco.
Well, yeah, well, that's really understandable. Oops. Because they don't get to go to the school where they live.
Right.
Okay, but I'm just saying, do you know why that number is so large for South San Francisco?
I don't think Mr. Reynolds didn't go through all of the transfer requests, but I can speak anecdotally from when I sat and approved those transfers. Many of the students who transfer into our district is for employment purposes. So a parent or family may work at Seton, and so it's easier for them to come into Daly City, drop off their child, and know they're 5 minutes away from a school.
Yeah, I wonder.
Another one is caretaker. So they may live in South City or any other school district, but grandma or auntie or, the person that took care of the child in the preschool years lives in Daly City. And so they do it for child care purposes. Those are the 2 primary reasons why families come into our district for employment.
Just wondering if
and-
this
and
is all
childcare.
came out as part of the report. That's all.
Yeah, so he didn't review that, but as I remember, those are the 2 big reasons why people come in and why people exit out as well.
Right.
Yeah, and that's common statewide. It's the majority of the items where you actually are almost required to approve those types of transfers.
Yeah, that's the one.
If I think, on the next page, we show a summary of our enrollment projections that have, what's the page, probably the page after that. There we go. Yeah, you see the page that looks like this with our color bars.
Page 8.
So what we do here is, we're looking at, again, from a district perspective, we're looking at the last 10 years of information to see what patterns existed, and then we're also, at the same time, showing you the results of our analysis into 6 years into the future. And so, by looking at that chart, we see that there was, some decline in the early 2000s, relatively stable after that, but then we've had some slight increases, or some significant increases over the last 2 years. Now, when we look at the next 6 years, again, we see some continued increase the next couple of years, and then relatively stable, and then a slight decline in years 5 and 6. So just a little hill we're going over there. So it's continuing the increase from the last couple of years, but there's not another spike expected in the overall enrollment,
Or a dip.
Or dip, correct.
or dip, no.